So believe it or not, I actually like EMOMs a lot. I just think that they tend to get overused and over-programmed, and some people use them for everything, right? If you have a hammer, everything's a nail, right? Sometimes we need to expand our toolbox a bit, and that's not to say that they're not useful or don't have a place, because I very much so think that they are a great tool. I use them a lot in the training that I write for my athletes. So 3 things that I want to go over today. 1, what is the best application of EMOMs? Like, what is their best use case for? 2 is limitations of EMOMs. So what things aren't they capturing or don't they prepare athletes for that would be important, that would go missing if they just like always did EMOMs, for example. If you only did training with EMOMs, what might not get captured in that wouldn't adequately prepare you for competition? And then 3 is what I believe is the best way, the best style of writing training to help build quality volume for CrossFit competitors. So stick around. So first, what is the best application of EMOMs? I would say one of the great things is that it really does allow you to accumulate a lot of good work, right? So if you're just looking to get quality reps in whatever the thing is, and you know how long 5 ring muscle ups is going to take you, and that you know that you're going to be able to do it if you're on a set rest clock, that's a great application. Right? It allows you to say, okay, I got these 4 different exercises. I'm going to put each of them on their own minute. I'm going to make sure that the rest is probably at least 20, 30 seconds or whatever, right? Depending on the power output of the movements. And it allows you to start to construct appropriate work rest ratios for people or for yourself if you're writing it. So it's really good in the fact that it allows you to extend out the amount of work that you're doing, which is a necessary thing, right? At a certain point, you can only can do continuous work for so long, right? You have to be able to, as a competitor, be able to intelligently, and especially as writing designs, you have to be able to intelligently inject rest into pieces so that you get the stimulus that you're looking for out of the entire thing. And a big part of what allows people to get better at the movements in CrossFit is just practice, accumulating quality reps. And if you do them tired all the time because you're just throwing them into a Metcon, that's not the best way to do it, right? People know that intuitively. It's like if you're doing sloppy reps, it's going to translate to you competing and doing sloppy reps, right? So it's doing something as simple as controlling the work rest, like using an EMOM, is a great way to make sure that you are able to do quality reps when you're actually doing the reps. What are the limitations of EMOMs? Well, sometimes I would say people don't actually know the work rest, right? If you are doing 7 ring muscle ups and you're doing that combined with 2 other movements and you're making it a 3-minute rotating EMOM, you do it for 21 minutes, you might not know on that 5th set if you're going to be able to do it unbroken, or if it's going to bleed out to the 45-second mark of that minute, or it might feel great and you might do it unbroken the whole time. So in that sense, you actually don't know the work rest. So unless you're someone who's highly proficient in the movements, you're actually not going to know what the work rest is. You might have an idea or a rough projection of what it might be, but you're not going to actually know. One simple solution to that would just be like, okay, I'm going to do 30 seconds of work each minute. And again, if they're depending what the power output of those movements, that could be appropriate. Maybe back it off. It's like ring muscle ups and burpee box jump overs. You're doing it at a fast cadence. Maybe it's 20 seconds on, 40 seconds of rest, right? Something like that, where you can still use the EMOM format, but it's more of a time priority versus a work priority. That'd be another way that you can kind of treat it a little bit differently. But the other thing that's really important that the EMOMs are missing that wouldn't be captured in that is the idea that transitions are a part of the sport. So what people in other sports, for example, triathlon, it's got 3 disciplines, it's got 2 transitions in it. So you're going from swim to bike and bike to run. Those transitions get timed and they get captured, and that's something that's a metric that people look to improve. Transitions in CrossFit workouts, people often overlook or use it as an opportunity to build in more rest time, or as a chalk break or other things, right? And it's like, people need to understand that the transitions are a critically important skill to be developed for the CrossFit athlete. Because especially like so many workouts have so many transitions that it's a very, very important thing that people need to pay attention to, and they need to practice it and to be diligent about it and be aware of it. And you don't get that in EMOMs. Not really, right? Unless you're writing them at a very high effort, or using something that is a little bit more time-based where it's kind of spilling into the next minute. which again is maybe not the ideal application of something like that, because you want to capture each of those things. You want to practice going from burpees when you're having elevated respiration rate and heart rate to straight into toes to the bar, right? You don't want to have that 40 seconds of rest where your respiration rate comes back down, right? You want to practice the process of going right into the next set, practicing your next bout of work, and then taking a short rest break and re-engaging in what you're doing. So figuring out how we can actually teach people how to pace by using those transitions, right? And that's the other big thing, is that EMOMs just don't really teach people how to pace effectively. They can help you figure out where your capacity is, which might kind of translate down the road to teaching you how you can pace appropriately, just because you know yourself a little bit better. But generally, they're not building the software that you need to actually be able to execute a piece of work on paper that you see to your best ability, which is a big part of CrossFit, because you're doing these novel tasks in an environment that you don't have that much testing behind it, right? If someone's an 800-meter runner, they've run that race probably thousands of times, hundreds of times for sure, right? So it's like, if that's you, then you know exactly what's needed for you to be at your best. Whereas these novel events, you need to be able to look at a completely new piece of work, understand how you should be able to pace it very accurately, because that's an critically important part to what we do. And when I say there's a better way to build quality volume in CrossFit, this is not at odds with the fact of doing a Metcon that's just 3 rounds per time as fast as you can. That's a critically important part of this process. It just comes closer to competition, right? That's intensifying and peaking the athlete to be ready to actually be at their best. And no elite athlete is at their best all the time, right? They need to be able to deload at certain times, back off at certain times, and then push at certain times, different phases of their training. This is a more of an accumulation phase is where this would go. So building the quality volume, not just doing the sport, right? AMRAP for 10 minutes or 5 rounds for time of this, and this. So that's important to kind of think about. And then also, this is kind of different than something that might be also very crucial but not sufficient for sports performance, which would just be like cyclical supportive training, right? Which is just like you get on a bike or a rower or do some, row, echo intervals. That stuff's very important and necessary to be at a high level. However, again, it's not going to give you the skills of learning how to move through CrossFit movements repeatedly for longer bouts of work, which is important. So I say all that to get to the tool that's actually been so valuable for me, and that is sports sets. Sports sets is just as it sounds, right? You're doing multiple sets, bouts of work of sports movements. So sport movement examples would be burpees and toe to bar and barbell cycling snatches and double unders and rope climbs and all of the sport movements in CrossFit. So you take all those things and you basically can put them into time priority or work priority scenarios and have the athlete do it repeatedly over a longer, more extended bout of time, and you're doing it at either a highly repeatable pace or prescribed effort that's below maximal. So that's what's going to be necessary to actually drive up the amount of work that someone can do. So I'm going to give you 2 real examples from athletes training, 1 work priority, 1 time priority, and that way you can actually see this, and I'll list it out below if people are listening. So the time priority example, again, this would just be an AMRAP is what I mean by time priority. So 12 to 15 sets of a 2-minute AMRAP, and this is going to be executed at the highest repeatable pace. And then basically it's 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, and on the off, you're going to be riding the air bike at a recovery pace. So basically resting on the bike. Again, you're looking at, 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 4 minutes times 12 to 15 sets. You're looking at up to an hour of work here. So a long time to be working, a long time to be breathing, and a long time to just be able to continue to figure out how to move efficiently through the movements, which is very important. So just illustrating this is for a higher level athlete that I wrote this for. The 2-minute AMRAP, again, this is supposed to be completed at the highest repeatable pace. So I want scores that are very even across the board. So they're going to start at a lower RPE and kind of work their way up as they obviously get deeper into it. The 2-minute AMRAP is 9 calorie echo, 6 kettlebell front rack lunges at 35 a hand. This is a male athlete, so a little bit lighter on the weight, 30 double unders, and 4 ring muscle ups. So a lot of quality work being accomplished there. And again, obviously you have to build the athletes up to this point. I would never start with 12 to 15 sets for somebody. This was sort of the the latter part of I want to call it an 8 to 12 week cycle, somewhere in there, right? So they're seeing this every week, and the movements in it change, the sets change, the structure stays relatively the same, and it's just getting extended out over a period of time. So they're built up to this point. So that's our time priority example. The work priority example, in this case, we're doing 3 sets at 70 to 80%. Again, looking for repeatable times with climbing effort. That's sort of what I'm putting in like the notes for the athlete. So yeah, 3 sets of everything I'm going to be saying. So 3 rounds of 12 cal ski, 6 dumbbell box step ups. Rest 2 minutes. 3 rounds, 25-foot dual dumbbell hang lunge with 35s. Again, this is a male athlete, 12 calorie row. Rest 2 minutes. 3 rounds, 6 calorie air bike, 6 bar facing burpee, 6 dumbbell snatch. Rest 3 minutes. So you did that. That was 1 set. So 3 rounds, rest 2, 3 rounds, rest 2, 3 rounds. You do that 3 total times. So a lot of work being accomplished. Again, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 45 to 55 minutes to get through that for the athlete I wrote it for. So again, just a long time to be just kind of moving through a piece of work, which is, again, necessary in this phase of training for that athlete. So in my opinion, that is one of the best ways, one of the best tools that I found. And if you don't know where to start, basically just kind of pick 3 movements. I would probably say MGW. So pick a cyclical activity that someone you could just go for. For example, in each of these, in that last example you saw, the one was ski, the one was row, the one was air bike. So just continuing to move through. Then you could pick a weightlifting example. So lunges, dumbbell snatches, and box step-ups. And then add in a body weight example. So bar facing burpees, toe to bar, that sort of thing, right? So pick one of those 3, put it into repeatable amounts of work where something that you're not going to have to break it up. Pick complementary movements, meaning that you're not going to have to have a lot of muscle fatigue from one going to the next. So don't pick, GHD sit-ups and toe to bar, right? Those are going to obviously use the exact same musculature and make you really tired, and you're not going to be able to just continue to move through those. The idea being that you just keep moving through the work. So if you do that, put in enough rest that you're able to repeat the work that you're doing, keep the bouts of work relatively small, and then extend out the amount of time that you're doing it. It's a good recipe to start building yourself up.